I work the night shift as a front desk clerk at a mid-size hotel in Stockholm. Most nights it's just me, a lukewarm cup of coffee, and whatever show I'm halfway through on my laptop. Quiet. Boring. Exactly how I like it. Last winter was unusually dead, barely any guests, barely any calls. I'd already burned through 2 seasons of a crime drama and was running low on things to keep me awake when an email popped into the hotel inbox at around 2 a.m. The sender's name was Marco Bellini. Marco wanted to book a suite for 18 nights. Said he was coming to Stockholm for a business project, needed a comfortable room, and wanted to prepay in full right away. All he needed from me was a price quote and confirmation that the dates were open. Now I've worked in hospitality long enough to know what this is. It's probably the most common scam in the hotel industry. Here's how it works. Unlike most businesses, hotels can process a card with just the number and expiry date. No PIN, no security code, nothing else. Our system also allows direct transfers to external accounts using card details alone. Scammers exploit this by paying with a stolen card, then canceling the booking and asking for a refund to a different account one they actually control. Every front desk worker knows to delete these emails. But it was 2 a.m., I had nothing going on, and honestly, I was curious how far this guy would take it. I wrote back with a quote around $2,200 for the full stay and noted that cancellations were free right up until check-in day. He replied within 20 minutes with a MasterCard number and told me to charge it immediately. I ran it through our validation software. The name that came back wasn't Marco Bellini. It wasn't even close. I told him the card was declined due to a technical error on our end and asked if he had another. He sent a second card almost instantly. Different name again, and when I looked up the BIN code, the first 6 digits that identify the issuing bank, this one was from a completely different country than the first. 2 stolen cards, 2 different banks, 2 different victims. That's when it stopped being boring. I could have just called the banks and gone home. But I had 4 hours left on my shift. So I wrote back, "Great news, Marco, the second card went through. Here's your booking reference." Right on schedule, about 90 minutes later, Marco sent a cancellation email. His wallet had been stolen, he said. He'd already blocked the card he paid with. Could we please refund the amount to a new card he'd provide? The new card was issued from a Romanian bank. These kinds of accounts registered under real names but sold to strangers are a known tool for laundering money. You can pick one up on certain corners of the internet for a few €100. Clean on paper, dirty in practice. I replied that refunding to a different card was no problem, but that our email server was going down for scheduled maintenance in about 10 minutes. My manager would process everything on Monday morning. However, if he needed the funds sooner, he was welcome to call the hotel directly before I finished my shift at 6 a.m. He called at 5:47. I took down the refund card number and his phone number, told him the transfer would clear by noon, and wished him a good day. Then I went home and got to work. The phone number he'd called from was connected to a Facebook profile that was completely public. Photos, check-ins, his full name Dario Esposito, his city, and right there in the About section, his employer. He worked at a hotel, a 4-star property just outside of Milan. I sat with that for a moment. Because if Dario worked at a hotel, he had access to guest records, credit card numbers from real people who'd booked real stays. The 2 stolen cards I'd already seen there was a good chance they'd stayed at his hotel. I called the property and asked for the manager. Within 3 minutes, I was connected to a woman named Federica, head of operations, sharp as a tack. I explained what had happened, gave her the names from the stolen cards, and asked if she could check whether those guests had stayed with them recently. She went quiet for a moment. Then, both of them checked out last month. Federica didn't yell. She was worse than that, completely calm, like someone who had just decided something. She thanked me, asked me to stay on the line, and put me on hold for almost 4 minutes. When she came back, she told me Dario was no longer on the premises and that she would be in contact with authorities. I then called both card networks' international fraud lines and reported everything: the card numbers, the BIN codes, the Romanian refund account, and Dario's phone number. The fraud investigator I spoke to said that with the refund account details, they could trace whether Dario had successfully scammed anyone else using the same method and pursue recovery for any amounts stolen. 2 days later, I got a call from an Italian detective asking for a written statement. Here's the twist that still gets me. About a week after all of this, I was casually scrolling through Dario's Facebook, still public, still up, and I noticed something buried in his older posts. He had a travel blog. Posts going back 3 years, visiting hotels across Europe, reviewing them, photographing the lobbies and rooms. Enthusiastic captions. Real production quality. Thousands of followers. Except once you knew what to look for, the pattern was obvious. Every city he visited had a corresponding spike in fraud reports from hotels in that area. He wasn't a travel blogger, he was casing hotels, charming the front desk, getting a feel for their systems, and coming back later digitally with a list of stolen card numbers from guests who'd stayed there. His entire online persona was a cover. I sent the blog link to the detective handling the case. Never heard back directly, but Dario's Facebook went dark about 2 weeks later. The travel blog disappeared the same day. Whether he was arrested or just went underground, I genuinely don't know. But somewhere outside of Milan, a guy with a gel-heavy haircut and a very public Facebook profile learned that the wrong bored night shift clerk answered his email at 2 a.m.